Hello, how you doing? This Wednesday, November 16th, the winners of this year's National Book Awards are going to be announced, so I thought it would be fun to make a short video looking through the different shortlisted books, and obviously there are a number of different categories. I'm just going to focus on the fiction and the translated fiction category because those are the books that I'm most drawn to and most interested in, and I've never really discussed this book award all that much on my channel before, even though I follow a lot of different book prizes, and I'm not really sure why that is. And I guess because it's an American award, and quite often not all the books that are listed for it have been published here in the UK yet, where I live. Even though I was born and raised in America, I've lived in London here for a really long time. So yeah, I'm just gonna look through a number of these different books, but I'd love to know if you've read any of these, if you'd recommend them, or if you're interested in reading them now, or if you have any favorites to win this Wednesday. Please let me know about that in the comments below. I'd love to hear about that. So looking at the fiction category first, and the novel The Rabbit Hutch by Tess Gunty. This is a novel set in a small town in Indiana, which has become quite economically depressed since the industry left this town, and it's focused on a housing complex where it follows a number of different characters, but specifically a group of teenagers that have kind of aged out of the foster care system, and one teenage girl in particular that is very religiously inclined and is very interested in saints and having these religious discussions. I started this book a while ago, and it was there's this very awkward meeting at first between her and another woman where the teenage girl really wants to discuss these religious ideas, and the woman's a bit sort of like, oh, I don't know. So yeah, this book kind of gives me vibes of that film Mermaids with Winona Ryder, just because she's a teenage girl. Her character in that film is a teenage girl that is very religiously inclined, and so yeah, this novel also won the Waterstones Debut Fiction Award, which is the very first time that book award happened, so it has a lot of buzz behind it, for a debut book. Next is The Birdcatcher by Gail Jones. This is a novel primarily set on the island of Ibiza, and it's told from the point of view of a female writer, and she discusses her female friend who's a sculptor but also has a lot of mental health issues, but also her friend's husband and the intensity of this trio's relationship while on this island. So it's a novel about black female creative expression, and yeah, about the intensity of those relationships. Gail Jones's novel Palmares, which was published last year, was one of my favorite books that I read last year, although Gail Jones is a really fascinating writer in that she's been a recluse for many years. Even though she's been writing for a long time, she just suddenly has started publishing a lot of books again. She was kind of absent for quite a long time and has been known as quite a controversial writer, but yeah, I'm very eager to get to this next book of hers, which is her fifth novel. The Haunting of Hajji, Hotak and Other Stories by Jamil Jankovi. This is a collection of short stories about modern-day Afghanistan and the Afghan diaspora, so it's about a range of different characters and subject matter, but focuses a lot on the violence of war and the ghosts that arise out of that, but also about the relationships of fathers and sons, and about the presence of history and modern day life. All This Could Be Different by Sarah Thankham Mathews. This is a novel about a young woman who's a recent graduate who, even though America is experiencing a recession, she's able to find a good job when she moves to Milwaukee, and there she makes a very good friend and also develops a romantic relationship with another woman. And so things seem to be going very well for her, but then they take a turn for the worst, and lots of complications arise, and her good friend proposes quite a radical solution to all their problems. And finally, on this shortlist is The Town of Babylon by Alejandro Varela, and this is a novel about a gay Latinx professor named Andreas who moves back to his small town in Texas after he has a big romantic disappointment in his life, and there he decides to attend his 20-year high school reunion. So it's reckoning with this past that he thought he had left behind, as well as all of the people there from his small hometown that he thought he left behind. And so yeah, looking at his past and how that is impacting his present. So this novel was also chosen as Publisher Weekly's one of their best novels of this year. So it's a book that also has a lot of buzz and good feeling behind it. So next there are the 5 books which are nominated for the Translated Literature category, and first off there's A New Name, Septology 6 through 7 by Jon Fosse, translated by Damien Searles. So this is a novel which is the third part in trilogy. Well, if it's a trilogy if you get these Fitzcarraldo editions of the books, but yeah, like it says in the title, there are 7 parts in the Septology sequence, which follows this central character named Ashley, who's a painter who lives quite a reclusive life. He's a widower, so he lives out on his own in the countryside working on his very intense minimalist paintings. He has a relationship with his neighbor, a sort of sometime friendship, but he also has a doppelganger who is also a painter that he has these encounters with, as well as sort of sifting through the memories of the past, or like physically moving through these different memories. And in this latest installment, it is set just before Christmas, which is very appropriate for this time of year, so it's a good time to set up with that, and where he has a dinner with his neighbor, a sort of Christmas dinner. And yeah, this his writing has been labeled as slow prose, so yeah, really sort of meditative kind of fiction, so you really need to have patience with it, but it's also really psychologically insightful in how it looks at art and religion and our sort of motivations in our life and our relationships with the past. It's really soul-searching type fiction. So this book was also shortlisted for the International Booker Prize this year, and this is an author that has also been tipped to win the Nobel Prize for Literature a number of times, and yeah, a really fascinating author. Kibogo by Scholastique Mukasonga, translated by Mark Polizzotti. This is a novel set in Rwanda, in a community that's been heavily impacted by European Christian missionaries, and about the clash between the traditional stories and mythologies of Rwanda and these sort of Christian gospel stories, and about a priest that's been defrocked, and about a group of women that gather around a fire at nighttime to tell their traditional mythology and to keep these stories alive. This is another author that's also been tipped a number of times for the Nobel Prize for Literature. Jawbone by Monica Ojeda, who's an author from Ecuador, and it's translated by Sarah Booker. This is a novel which is set at a bilingual school and follows the students there, specifically 2 girls who are very close friends and are kind of a double image image of each other, so kind of like Jon Fosse's book. But one of the girls is incredibly charismatic and leads the girls at the school on a number of thrilling rituals which become increasingly dangerous and bizarre, but it also follows the story of a teacher there that is going through a lot of issues of her own. So it sounds like quite like a twisted and like fascinating story. 7 Empty Houses by Samanta Schweblin, who's an author originally from Argentina, but she currently lives in Berlin. This is translated by Megan McDowell, and this is a collection of seven short stories set in 7 different empty houses, and in these houses, which may be devoid of furniture and people, but they're filled with these ghosts and memories from the past. So this is fiction which is meant to be quite like creepy and gothic. I've read Samantha Schweblin's novel Fever Dream, this very short, very intense and mysterious novel, and I love the tone and the weirdness of her fiction, so I'm really eager to read more. And finally, there is Scattered All Over the Earth by Yoko Tawada, translated by Margaret Mitsutani, and this is a dystopian novel set in the not too distant future when Japan has been covered with water and is no longer inhabitable, and about a woman who's a refugee that's moved to Denmark, and there she teaches other immigrant children in a language that she has invented, but she's also trying to preserve the Japanese language, which is disappearing because the physical country has disappeared and many of its people. So yeah, it's following that story, which I think sounds like quite dark, but I've heard from other readers that this is actually quite a light and playful novel, which is, I think, so fascinating. So those are all the books in the translated literature category and the fiction category of the National Book Awards. But like I said, I'd love to know if you've read any of these books and have any favorites to win, or favorites in the other categories, or favorite reads from those other categories. I'd love to hear about that in the comments below. But yeah, it'll be really fascinating to see which books win on Wednesday. So thank you for watching, and I will speak to you again soon. Bye-bye.